Scott Frost's return to UCF has already been off to an interesting start, and it'll be fun to see how he gets this team back on track. Today, we take a deep dive into the UCF Knights to see what we should expect in this 2025 season. Now, when you look at what Scott Frost did his last time at UCF, the first year obviously wasn't great. The second year, we saw some good things, obviously. They're hoping that maybe that is the same in his second trip with this program, but it might take some time. This is a very different challenge, winning in the Big 12 versus winning in the AAC. That was just a very different challenge that he had to walk into, and obviously he handled it pretty well, but doing it in the Big 12 provides a ton of bigger challenges that he didn't have the first time around. But you're still in the same place. UCF is in a great place for recruiting. There's plenty of opportunities to take this team back to where they need to be. It's just an elevated challenge for sure. Now, I'm interested to see how he ultimately handles the transfer portal, recruiting, and the transfer portal did a number on this roster, and same with the NFL draft. So I think that there's plenty of work to do. And he also brought in, he obviously got a quick introduction, if you will, to the transfer portal in this day and age. And he took it in stride, and he found certain players that are going to contribute right away. But I don't know what it means in terms of the quality of talent that you're bringing in. Now, nobody's going to really replace RJ Harvey. You're not going to replace him, plain and simple. You might have a few guys that are able to do that, but RJ Harvey was too special to replace. You had a number of other players that are going to be gone. Kobe Hudson, I think, will be missed. You have a few offensive linemen that leave via the transfer portal. You lose some defenders that are going to be tough to replace. Lee Hunter, Ricky Barber, Deshaun Pace, Brandon Adams, Mac McWilliams. You have a number of guys that leave big holes in the offense and the defense. And this is a team that's going to feature probably more transfers in the depth chart than returnees. But I think that there is still room for excitement. This is clearly a roster that needed new talent coming in regardless of what happened. And just because you lose guys doesn't mean that you're necessarily concerned about what this team looks like going forward. But the amount of players that you have to bring in means that it's going to be challenging to make sure that you brought in a number of great players rather than just hoping that they'll turn out. So that's a big challenge for Scott Frost, but it's going to be a new team. It's going to be a new era, and that alone has brought excitement back to UCF's program. And it might take some time to get back there, but at least the nostalgia of having Scott Frost on campus is going to be really fun for this team. The quarterback position is part of that. Taven Jackson is a really interesting player coming from Indiana, has a lot of talent, has the ability to make some big time throws, and now gets an opportunity to start in a UCF's offense, in a Scott Frost offense that should highlight his skill set plenty. Now, he's going to learn from Mackenzie Milton as the quarterback coach, and maybe that effect has a lot of opportunity to be successful, but he has to win the job. You also have to hold off Ja'Curry Brown, who has the talent to be the starter. You also have Cam Fancher. I would say it's between Brown and Jackson right now. I think those two fit this offense really well and have more talent than Fancher necessarily does. But you have three options at QB, really, is what it comes down to. You have three options. That feels like you're in a good place. Ja'Curry Brown had quite a bit of experience last year, but this is a new offense. So everybody has to learn what this offense is going to be. Everybody has to learn the new faces that you're going to work with, and the quarterbacks are a part of that. So even though Ja'Curry Brown is coming back, he is going to have new running backs by him. He's going to have new wide receivers to throw to. So it's going to take some time for him to get comfortable, even if he does win the job. But I'm excited to see what Taven Jackson can do. I thought that he was going to do some exciting things at Tennessee. I thought he was going to be good at Indiana. Didn't obviously pan out, so now he gets an opportunity at UCF. We'll see if this is finally the stop, but I've heard good things about him. I've read good things about him so far, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, the running back room will look different, but I feel really good at least about the top two guys. Miles Montgomery is a veteran player, has had plenty of experience both as a runner. You've seen some good experience from him as a pass catcher, but he is going to be the guy for now. Jaden Nixon was an underrated addition. I don't think people really know who Jaden Nixon is or was from Western Michigan, but that's a guy who is extremely productive for that team. And I think that gives you a solid number 2 option. I think he's going to be part of the rotation. They'll give him plenty of touches as well. So that's a good piece to have in your offense. That's a good player to have. And that gives you some stability for an offense that still wants to run the football. They're just maybe not going to do it as much as maybe they did under Gus Malzahn. Other guys to keep an eye on, Stacey Gage, Tavion Swint. Those are guys who could also be part of this rotation, but it feels like Montgomery and Nixon are the top 2 guys. Now, the quarterbacks can be part of the rushing attack as well. I mean, Brown ran for over 400 yards last year. Jackson isn't the most mobile quarterback, but he definitely can run. They're just not going to use his legs nearly as much. They really don't, I don't think, want to if they don't have to. But if they can supplement their legs with what the passing attack is doing, then great. That'll just make everything better. Now, the wide receiver position also plays a part in that, and you have a lot of new faces that you have to get to know. Marcus Burke comes in from Florida. DJ Black comes in from Limestone. You bring in Dwayne Thomas Jr. from Charlotte. So that's going to be tough to see who those guys are going to be right off the bat, because you need to figure out, one, who's the quarterback, but then also how do these guys have chemistry, or do one of these or multiple of these guys have better chemistry with Taven Jackson? Do they have better chemistry with Ja'Cory Brown? Do they have better chemistry with Cam Fancher? Sometimes that just happens, and it really depends on who the quarterback is. So when you have so many new faces, it comes down to just their pure ability to get open, and then who you have more chemistry with. Who can you anticipate making certain throws? Where can you see the ball going where you know, okay, if I'm running this route, I know the ball is going to be somewhere between here and here. That's kind of another challenge that this group has to go through. And also, you just have to get used to the new names. You have plenty of new faces that are going to give this fan base something to figure out. You're going to have to look at the depth chart and look at, okay, this guy's number what? Who is this? Okay, that's who this guy is. Now, in terms of production, I think that all these guys have the ability to be solid pieces for this offense. You're just looking for the alpha. So maybe some young players like Carl Jenkins, Wade and Charles, those are guys that could step up with some unknowns right now. And if you're a young player in UCF's offense, you're going to get an opportunity just like the rest of this team. The rest of these guys are going to have to compete for a starting spot. They're going to have to prove their worth. And the wide receiver position is about as wide open as it can be. Another name to keep an eye on is Chris Commerkamp from Chattanooga. I think that he could be a solid part of this rotation as well. So you have plenty of openings. You'll have plenty of competition. And if anything, Scott Frost is going to weed out who's not ready, and he's going to find his starters because he brought in so much talent to some of the returners. He's going to figure out, okay, do the returners actually have what it takes, or do these guys coming in elevate our program even more? And the wide receiver position is a perfect example of that. Now, tight end could be interesting. I think the tight end position could be featured quite a bit. Dylan Wade comes in from Maryland. I think they're really excited about what he could be in this offense. A good pass catcher, has good hands, has the ability to make some plays, could be a reliable target for these quarterbacks, especially if the wide receiver position needs time to get things sorted out. Maybe Dylan Wade, Kylan Fox, those are guys that could be targets right off the bat, get more targets than the wide receivers. We don't really know. There's so many unknowns with this program, but it's just such a different era. I think under Gus Malzahn, you felt like things were kind of stagnant. Things weren't going to go the way you wanted it to go. And a change was needed. Malzahn obviously leaves for Florida State. Frost comes in. Now, there is a group of fans that I think they're optimistic about what this team could be. I think there are some fans, though, that are concerned about this go around for Frost. They don't necessarily know if he can do what he did again, but we don't know. We have all of this time between now and the beginning of the season to deal in hypotheticals and guess at what's going to happen. And that's kind of the fun part. We just don't know what it's going to be, but we'll learn soon enough. And even if this year isn't great, we know that it's probably going to be a rebuilding year. And when I say probably, I mean it is. It's going to be a rebuilding year. It's just a matter of how much work they have to do in the rebuild to get to where they want to go. The offensive line is going to be part of that as well. And there are new faces galore up front. Now, you do return Keegan Smith and Paul Rubelt, but you bring in talent that is going to be new to this program. I think bringing in Carter Miller was an underrated transfer at center that gives a new quarterback an experienced player who knows what he's doing. He'll obviously have to learn the offense, but he has faced some interesting talent in the Sun Belt. So, and he has experience. Sometimes you just got to get someone who knows what to expect at the position, regardless of the scheme. He knows what it takes to identify certain coverages. Even if you're running different schemes, certain things on film look the same. Certain things are going to give you triggers of, okay, I know what this look is. This is what they're going to do, even though I don't know that defense. So while he's sorting things out with his own scheme, he has that intel, that experience that you don't get with a lot of other players. Another guy that's really interesting at tackle, Preston Cushman, comes in from Ole Miss. Behind him, Connor Meadows could challenge for time. Another limestone transfer is Owen Spell. That it's going to be new faces. There's plenty of guys that are going to push for time. And right now, every position is open. Every position is going to be a competition until that first game and even in the season. Scott Frost is going to push his team to compete with each other, to be better, and make sure that the rebuild doesn't take a long time. Because if you're complacent with the guys you have coming back, if you're complacent with some of the play that you get, you're not going to get better. It's going to take a long time to get things sorted out, to get this program where it needs to be. And one thing that Scott Frost did his first time around is he made sure that the best players were on the field. And he did that by making sure that everybody competes on a weekly basis within his program. And he's going to do that again. So the offense is going to be kind of a concern right now. But I think while they get things sorted out, the defense should be able to carry some of that responsibility, carry some of that load right off the bat. The defensive line, I think, is easily the best group, the best unit of any in this team, on this roster. The four guys that you're going to have starting are, I think, going to have really fun seasons. Malachi Lawrence and Nigel Kelly are back at the end positions. John Walker returns. RJ Jackson comes in from Tulsa. You feel like you have a solid group of four right off the bat. Behind them, Sincere Edwards comes in from Pitt. Horace Lockett comes in from Georgia Tech. You also have Rodney Laura and Isaiah Nixon. That's a good first and second unit. So if there's a group that you can lean on right off the bat, that Alex Grinch can lean on right off the bat, it's that group. The defensive line, I think, has a lot of special players and a group that I think is going to be better than people realize. It's going to be a reason why this defense could be one of the best in the Big 12 if they're able to put everything together. Now, with some of the faces you bring in on the back end, maybe there are concerns, but the defensive line is probably not a position group that you have to worry about. I mean, Lawrence and Kelly, I think, are going to be extremely disruptive from what we've seen from them. Kelly had 10 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. He had 53 tackles overall. He is someone who's been proven that he can be productive. Malachi Lawrence, 15 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. So overall, I think you're in a good place with bringing those two back. I think that John Walker is a player that not a lot of people are talking about quite yet, but he has the ability to take his game to a level where people are forced to talk about him because the plays that he's making. RJ Jackson is coming from Tulsa, so you probably don't know a ton about him, even if you're a UCF fan, but he is someone that now he gets an opportunity to have some help around him that will help him be more productive as well. And then the second group is going to be really fun. Edwards and Lockett were in positions where maybe they needed a change of scenery, and I'm hoping that for UCF's sake that helps this group quite a bit, so that when you need a break for some of your starters, you don't see a big drop off to that next group. That's going to help the guys behind them as well. And the two guys that you bring in to be your starters at linebacker, I think could be two of the better linebackers in this conference. Lewis Carter and Keely Lawson were very productive in their time at their previous schools. Carter comes in from Oklahoma, Lawson from Virginia Tech. Lawson's teammate, Jaden McDonald, will also be part of that, or I should say former teammate at Virginia Tech will also be part of that. You also bring Cole Kozlowski from Colgate, and you bring in Lewis Carter's former teammate, Phil Picotti from Oklahoma as well. So you have new faces, and it might take some time for them to gel. It might take some time for everyone to get up to speed with what Alex Grinch wants to do. But also Alex Grinch has something to prove this year as well. And when you look at his previous stops, it did not go well. And the USC experiment just wasn't great. Now, we've seen coaches that have had big opportunities that just weren't ready. Scott Frost is a perfect example for that, and maybe that's why he likes Alex Grinch, is he's bringing Alex Grinch in for some redemption, because the USC experiment that he had, the time he had at USC as a defensive coordinator was just rough. It was so bad at times, and obviously he takes on that responsibility as the play caller. He has to be able to get his players in better position, coach them up better. Playing in the Big 12 maybe gives him less pressure, and especially with a program that is looking to rebuild, it's not purely on him to be great right away, but I think that he has talent that is looking to play with a chip on their shoulder and help him in a way, because now he gets a chance of redemption. He gets to show that, hey, I can still call plays. That just wasn't a great time for my career. So maybe there's still that left in him, because before he got to USC, there were a lot of people that were excited about his abilities as a play caller. That didn't just come out of nowhere. He had times where he was making great calls, and he had his defenses playing really well. If he can get that back at UCF, that's going to make everything better. That's going to make this team better. The program's rebuild takes less time, and the group he has this year could get him back on track faster than expected. Carter and Lawson are going to be a big part of that. The linebackers, the defensive line will all be part of that. The secondary is probably where he maybe has the most concerns, though you do return some really interesting experience. You return Jakari Henderson and Damari Henderson. They will push for time. Isaiah Reed comes in from Brown at one of the corner positions. Jane Williams and Philip Dunham come in from FAU. Jakari Henderson will push for one of those corner spots. Damari Henderson for safety. You bring in a couple of Syracuse transfers in Jaden Gould and Jaden Bellamy. So you have two guys that have Power 4 experience that were pretty solid for the Orange, to be completely honest. Those are guys that will push for their respective positions. DJ Bell comes in from Memphis. Jair Brown is going to compete for one of the spots as well, maybe at the nickel spot. He comes in from LSU. Braden Marshall is a returner. You don't have a ton of returners, but the ones you do, you know that they have the ability to compete. They have the ability to play at this level. You just have to find the right combination of guys. Overall, you have new faces. That is the same trend with this team on both sides of the ball, is that you have new faces that it might take time for them to get up to speed with a new scheme. The thing with that is, though, even the returners have to figure out a new scheme, whether it's offense or defense. It's going to take time for them to learn their new teammates, learn their new scheme, and it might take a while for them to win football games. Now, I should say that in the schedule gives you two winnable games right off the bat. Jacksonville State, if Rich Rod was there, that's a game that Jacksonville State could win. I don't feel as confident with him gone and Charles Kelly taking over. I feel confident that UCF can win that game. North Carolina A&T, same thing. Then you get a bye week and the beginning of conference play combined with the North Carolina game is really going to tell us where this program's at. Now, North Carolina is going through a transition as well, but that game might tell us where each program stands and how far each one has to go. Conference play does not get off to a great start. You go to Kansas State first. That's a rough introduction to the Big 12 for Scott Frost. You host Kansas after that, which is not as difficult, but still plenty challenging. And then you go to Cincinnati, a team that is very familiar with UCF, obviously, and their battles back in the AAC when Scott Frost was there. They are not going to take things lightly. West Virginia with Rich Rod, you do still get Rich Rod, but it's with West Virginia. That's a team that will be on the same level as UCF. Another opportunity to show which program is further ahead in their rebuild. The final bye week is before another tough stretch. At Baylor, hosting Houston, at Texas Tech, hosting Oklahoma State, and at BYU. So if you're Scott Frost, things are more difficult. But at the same time, I think UCF fans will say that you probably can't get much worse than it was last year. Things were not great last year. It just wasn't working out with Gus Malzahn. Both sides needed to change. They needed to change the scenery. They needed to move on, and they did. Now Scott Frost comes back. He has a roster full of new faces. He has returnees that are trying to figure out those new faces, the new system, everything. But it's going to take some time, and I think fans need to understand that. Fans probably do understand that. They're just excited to get back to the days when this was a team that had a national championship, that was taking it to teams like Auburn, that had a magical run. I mean, if you go back, if you need to have some nostalgia, go back to that 2017 season and watch the last three of the games. Watch the USF game, the Memphis AAC championship, and then the Peach Bowl against Auburn. If you want to watch that and see where this program can get to, that is what that program is capable of doing. And if Scott Frost rediscovers that magic, he finds his rhythm, he finds whatever he needs to get back to that point, then this is a program that'll be really fun to watch in the Big 12. It might take some time. This year might be a tough year to watch, but if Scott Frost finds that, the future of this program is just as bright as it was when he left.